Hello everyone, my name is Cyrus Shackle with Topline Results, and today we're going to take a look at exporting data in Zoho CRM. And of course there's numerous reasons why you'd want to export data. Perhaps you want to import it into another system, maybe you want to do some Excel functions on it, do some analysis. So really, there's a lot of reasons why you'd want to export data, and we're going to focus on two main use cases that you'd encounter when exporting data. And that is exporting all of the records of a specific module and exporting specific records from a module. Let's focus on the first option, exporting all of the records from a specific module. To do this, let's go up to the settings icon in the top ribbon. From here, you'll see that we're taken to the setup page. Once we're here, we can either search for export in the search bar, or we can choose the export option under data administration. You'll see that we're taken to the export data page and we have the option to select the export module. This drop-down shows us all available modules and will allow us to pick which module we want to export our records from. So for instance, if I choose contacts and click export, I can export a CSV file of all the contacts in my Zoho system. We'll see that Zoho asks for confirmation, and when I click OK, you'll notice that a CSV file was downloaded in my browser. Now it's worth noting that there are a few differences at this stage depending on what version of Zoho CRM you're using. You can see up in the corner that I'm using Enterprise Edition, and for me, the maximum number of records I can export using this method is 3,000. Depending on the edition of Zoho that you're using, it could be more or less than this, so it'll be good to check what version you're in before performing this kind of export. Additionally, notice that we have the 3,000 record limit, so if you have more than 3,000 contacts in your system, or more than the maximum that's specified for your edition, you would not be able to export all of your contacts using this particular method. You would need to use the method that we'll define in just a moment. But let's take a look at the CSV file that was generated. When I open this, you'll see that it opens in Excel. And I have a CSV file that contains first the field header names of each of the fields from my specific module. So for instance, I have the contact's first name, last name, email, title, and I have all of the different fields that are available in that contact module. Now, you'll also notice that those were only contact records because that's the module I chose. If you wanted to export several different modules, or indeed if you wanted a backup of the entire database, you would follow this hyperlink in the top that goes to the Request Data Backup option. Now the data backup will give you a complete backup of your Zoho database. Now, depending on the kind of license that you have with Zoho, such as Professional or Enterprise, you may have automatic backups scheduled to be performed at a regular interval. However, at any point you can request a backup be performed, however it may incur an additional fee of some kind. So now that we've taken a look at how to export all the records of a specific module, let's take a look at exporting only specific records. To do this, we're going to go to the Reports tab in the top ribbon, and we're going to create a new report that contains the records that we'd want to export. Now, it's worth noting that what version of Zoho you're in will help determine if this is a viable solution for you. For example, the standard and free editions of Zoho CRM at the time of this recording do not support creating your own report, so you would not be able to create a report to filter on the criteria that you want to export on. In this case, you would need to run an export off one of the pre-created reports for you in order to use this method of export. But for this example, we're going to create a brand new report that will filter off of specific criteria so that we can export the specific records. So I'm going to click Create Report, and here I can choose the main module that I want to create the report based off of. So for instance, I'm going to choose a few contacts and create a report based off of them. You'll notice that here I have the option to select a few related modules. You can select up to 3 related modules that you will be able to pull fields from in the report. I'm not going to choose any related modules for this demonstration, but you can choose any of the available modules in this checklist. When I click Continue, you'll see that I have a few different report types, but I'm going to stick with a tabular report for now. Next, I can choose which columns are available in this specific report. Because I'm going to mimic doing a complete data export, I'm going to click all of the available fields so that all fields are included in the export. However, if you only wanted to include certain fields, you could certainly only choose a subset. When I click continue, now I have the option to filter out which contacts I want to export. This is where you would choose the specific records that you would want to export. It is worth noting that you cannot just check off which records you want to export. You need to be able to filter them along a certain criteria. So for instance, I'm going to choose records that were created by the current logged in user. Now this works fine because that's the criteria that I'm looking after, but say that you wanted to export some records that didn't have a specific field or a specific set of criteria along which you could filter out. There's a few different ways that I would try to manage that situation, but I would say one of the easiest would be to create a tag, perhaps called export, and to give that tag to the records that you'd want to export, and then simply filter along that tag. Of course, this might not work in every situation, so you may have to play it by ear, but in some way you need to be able to filter only on the records that you'd want to export. Now I'm going to click the continue option, and I'm going to give this report a name. I'm just going to name this My Contacts. Now when I save this, I have to select a folder. I'm going to put this in the account and contact report, and when I save this, you'll see that this report is generated. And up here in the top right hand corner, I have the option to export this report as an Excel file, as a CSV file, or as a PDF. I'm going to choose the CSV file because the other export that we performed earlier was a CSV, and I want to compare a few of the differences. We'll see that the export progresses and that my browser has downloaded a new CSV file. Let's take a look at this. Now you'll notice that it has a few differences from the last CSV file that we took a look at. For one, the report name appears as the first row. Additionally, after all of your data is concluded, you see that you have the total records, you have who generated the report, and the date that the report was generated on. Now, it's worth noting that depending on what you are using this export for, you may need to delete these extra fields. For instance, if you wanted to import this data somewhere, it would probably be prudent to just delete the data that isn't relevant. Now, it's worth noting that you can only have 2,000 records per page of a report. So if you need to export more than 2,000 records, you would need to move to the next page of the report and then export that page as well. So keep this in mind if you're performing a large data export. So now we've taken a look at how to export all of the data of a specific module and at simply exporting specific records within the Zoho CRM system. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.